Hello, I'm Maddie, sitting down with a virtual session for The Current. We are here today with the pleasure of being joined by Merrill and Nate of Tune Yards. Hi, guys. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Yeah, we are going to get right into the music with a couple songs off of their upcoming record, Sketchy. We're going to hear Hold Yourself, Hypnotized, and Make It Right. Is there anything you guys want to say before we hear those songs?
We love you, Minneapolis. Please enjoy.
So here's Tune Yards playing some songs off their upcoming album.
Parents are children, parents are children, parents were children all of the time. Parents, they made us, they tried to raise us, The trees are in the meadow. The clouds are in the trees. The people aren't anywhere to be found. Better take one of these. The trees are in the meadow. The cows are in the pigs. The people aren't anywhere to be found. The great bigger deeds. Look into my eyes. I know you, honey. Look into my eyes. I see you, honey. Look into my eyes. I know it, honey. Look into my eyes. Quiet, quiet. Look into my eyes. Oh, I know you, honey. Look into my eyes. Oh, I feel you, honey. Look into my eyes. Oh, you're hypnotized, hypnotized, hypnotized. Silent as a citizen. City streets of ghosts and past. They used to laugh and dance here until a spell was cast. Oh, look into my eyes. I know you, honey. Look into my eyes. I see you, honey. Look into my eyes. I know it, honey. Look into my eyes. Look into my eyes. Oh, I know you, honey. Look into my eyes. Oh, I feel you, honey. Look into my eyes. Oh, you're hypnotized, That mirror draws down your head. You think the image is real. Your tears are melting your face, but you forgot how to feel. Remember your lungs, remember your lungs, remember your lungs, remember your lungs. The weight of your bones, remember your lungs. Wake up and look into top down doesn't cut it. Will I love you? Can I love you? Top down doesn't cut it. love you at all. Top down, never cut it like a brother, like a sister, top down, never cutting. Can I love you at all? So she asked, was I willing to pay? Not to punish, but heal from this pain. Be the truth and live up to my name. I said, go ahead, make me human. Make it right, make it right, make it right, make it right. Wake up, woman, mirror, say I love you. Can I love you? Wake up, woman, mirror, liberation for all. Wake up, woman, mirror, never man enough, top down, never let you, liberation for all. Top down doesn't cut it, will I love you? Can I love you? Top down doesn't cut it, can I love you at all? In my voice you can hear what I owe. It's a debt from a long time ago. Poisons all of the seeds that I sow. So go ahead, make me human. Make it right, make it right, make it right, make it right. He cried out, well, how much would it take? There's no end to a history I can't shake. Was he willing for his children's sake to look ahead as a human? Make it right, make it right, make it right, make it. So go ahead, make me human. So go ahead, make me human. So go ahead, make me human. Wake up, woman. Wake up, woman. Like a brother, like a sister. Wake up, woman. Like a brother, like a sister.
Those are just a couple tracks with tune yards off their upcoming record, Sketchy. Now we're going to chat with them for a little bit. Thank you again, Merrill and Nate, for being here, and a special guest, Coco, that I can see at the bottom of the frame.
Say hi. There.
A prominent figure in the scene here. How are you guys doing
Yes.
on this morning?
Great. Yeah.
Good.
Feeling lucky to be alive this morning.
Yeah. How has your kind of quarantine routine been as you're gearing up for the release of your new record?
It's really varied. I mean, I think a lot of people are finding, I'm sure more than us, than, that day to day, we're kind of getting new information about what is going to be happening. So it really depends. We taped a live stream gig yesterday at our studio. That's been a kind of new routine. And in the beginning, it was a lot of jogging and cooking. Yeah, so it's really varied over the months.
Yeah, it's good to staying active, recording shows. That kind of element of busyness is definitely something that I think we're all looking for. I've noticed in some of the content that we've gotten so far from Sketchy, there's so many bright colors and patterns. And I know that that's nothing new for you guys as a group, but how has that visual world sort of felt in the making of this album?
We had one of the first things we did, the first times we ventured out from our home in the pandemic was to do a photo shoot. And we all got tested and figured out how to do it safely, and got Pune Ghana, who's an incredible photographer, to work with us, and Jordy Scheinberg, who has done costuming and styling for us. So we all got together, and I had a big Pinterest board of different colorful, a lot of it's colorful imagery, really kind of saturated colors of, 70s, 80s photography, analog photography that I really liked. So we've had a whole team of people really working on the creative side. And then Mike, I'm spacing on his last name.
Zimmerman?
I think you're right. Zimmerman, like Bob Dylan, Yeah, I guess so. Mike Zimmerman at Beggars at our label, he worked with us to do these, to do the album design. And just, yeah, from the beginning, I think we had this idea of cutouts, and he really just put together a real, and yeah, imagery that we've been so happy with. Probably some of the best artwork that that's been associated with Tune-Yards stuff, I think.
Yeah, I feel like it definitely encapsulates the sound of the singles that we've gotten so far off this upcoming record. I know with your recent late night performance, you had a lot of fun, kind of childlike elements with you, Merrill, singing from the colorful beanbags. How's prep for those virtual experiences been in contrast to what you were doing with like in-person live shows before?
It different and the same, I guess. I mean, prep. What did we do to prep?
It was a lot more, obviously, like Zoom meetings, and the shoot itself was just a kind of surreal because everyone had face masks, and like kind of up until we did the take, we were pretty much like wearing masks, and but the producer did an amazing job of just making sure everyone got tested multiple times. And
I guess we had less rehearsal than we normally would have a lot of rehearsals. Hamir, our Atwal, who plays drums with us, we normally, for the last record, we rehearsed hours and hours and hours in our basement studio in Oakland, and this time we all rehearsed on our own. Pretty much, Nate and I got to rehearse together. We're a pod, so like we have that advantage of being able to rehearse together a lot, and then the singers rehearsed on their own. Everyone really rehearsed their parts. So it was just the day that we were in the studio that we really got to play together. But we did do 4 days of recording a whole bunch of things, so that we would have, we kind of made the most of this time that we had with a safe time that we had with people to record.
Like, that's a lot different than the way that like a tour or like previous live shows might have looked for you guys. I know that the last release you guys had up before Sketchy was actually a film score for the Boots Riley film, I'm Sorry to Bother You. How did making that film score contrast with what you're doing now?
Film scoring is so different. And I mean, the main thing I think is that we're working toward Boots's vision, which for me was super, I think for both of us was super refreshing to make music that, which we had done a little bit here and there, but make music that was really serving another purpose besides fitting into a Tune-Yards record or the ideas behind Tune-Yards songs. So yeah, process. How is the process different?
I think definitely, as Merrill said, just being a small part of a bigger vision that wasn't our own vision, but helping someone else's realize their vision. And then obviously not having lyrics, I think, was one of the biggest things for us musically. So just working more on writing themes, and we'd never scored a film score before, so there was a big learning curve on both musically and also just like, what do we name these files? Like, how do we like stay organized, and that whole technical side of things.
Yeah, things you don't think about. I just realized we could do this. Speaking of technical things, we can do that, right?
Yeah, then sounds good to me.
And people can see your shining mustache.
A whole new view, yeah. Do you think that writing that film score changed the way that you looked at songwriting for Sketchy?
For sure, yeah. I feel like that freedom of not having to think about lyrics and having, it's like someone gives you a puzzle that you have to figure out, and then you start using all these tools that you never would have used before. So I think there was a lot of filtering of vocals, especially a lot of using more of the classical range of voice to do, that kind of main theme. There were just elements that, of our, what we're able to do. And Nate, I feel like I leaned on you a lot for your compositional knowledge and skills and talents in terms of how do we take this theme and then how do we make a lot of music. A lot of it's just like it's a ton of music to fill that time and to to at a certain point there was just a quantity that we had to compose. So I think that that was new for me, is kind of bringing in some of the compositional knowledge that you have.
And I think one of the main things for me was seeing how much of the film they got rid of in the editing process. To see the film go from, the first cut was probably like 2.5 hours down to like, 80 minutes. And there was like really good stuff that they got rid of, but the getting rid of it made the movie so much better. So I feel like when we were in that phase where we were like, oh, actually, we don't need this song on the album, or we don't need this section. The album will be stronger with less material.
Yeah, we learned a ton. Plus, working with Boots, I mean, that's it was like working with someone who just had has a vision, and then you're just like everyone just is like whoa, gets in, is part of this wave of creativity. It was super. He's an amazing artist.
Absolutely. I had read that you wrote Hold Yourself, one of the singles off of your upcoming record, some time ago, a couple of years ago. And was most of the album written ahead of time and something that you worked on recording now? Or what did the timeline for creating this record look like?
Yeah, it's interesting, that timeline. It's now a big conversation. I mean, it now feels like so relevant more than ever of what was written before pre-pandemic. It was all written pre-pandemic. So even the songs that are, that feel resonant, none of those lyrics were written after the pandemic. So I think all of the songs were written in 2019, right? And then we were pretty much done with the album compositionally, I think, by the end of 2019. And then we did a kind of last production burst in the early part of the year. And we had, so all that was left by March of 2020 was to mix the record. And that was what changed. We were going to go mix it in person with Eli Cruz out in upstate New York, but that was the trip that got canceled. So we did the mixing remotely, but otherwise everything was written and pretty much tracked and recorded by March of 2020.
It's interesting to hear that, because I feel like particularly on Hold Yourself, it does feel so resonant with like the current times. Do you feel like that is kind of something that you've like rediscovered new meanings in those songs throughout the past year?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I didn't know that. I didn't know that kind of meaning, but I guess, I mean, not to say that I am particularly wise or anything, but it's not, I mean, or that I predicted a pandemic, because I certainly did not. But, we don't think a lot about right before the pandemic, because our whole existence has shifted. But there were similar things. I mean, a questioning of what do we do, and and a questioning of how do we get through this. It was already a hard time, existentially, I feel, for a lot of us. And so I think that the idea is, it's not like they came out of nowhere, and the pandemic also didn't come out of nowhere. And I think that's something that we don't talk a lot about, but culturally, but that there are things that are not working in the way that we are on the planet and being on the planet. And certainly many of those things brought us where we are today.
Yeah, absolutely. More of an amplification of what was going on than this whole new situation that was being thrown at us.
Right.
What have been some things that you feel like were inspiring to you in both the creating of this record as well as, more current days throughout this quarantine life?
Inspirations in quarantine life.
We started watching Kung Fu movies for the first time.
There you go. I feel like it's been cycles of inspirations.
Yeah.
That's been an inspiration for sure. I'm trying to think of, I had this like nerdy Bertolt Brecht section of the pandemic, like that was like a good couple months of reading a book that's literally, it's not a book about Bertolt Brecht. It is a literal date by date what he did in his life. So it's like April of 1926 and like literally what he did, like where his body was in space. And for some reason, it was the most comforting book I could have been reading in whatever May of last year. I never thought about time that way, but just if you don't interpret your life's events, if you're just like, and then I went here, there's so much of a story there, just in the facts. It was really interesting.
That is really
It was actually Brechtian for those of your listeners who are Brecht fans. It was a very Brechtian way of presenting his life.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I'm kind of curious to hear more about kung fu movies. What has kind of drawn you guys to watching those recently?
We started with it just popped up on our Netflix.
Yeah, ask Netflix. Why did we
go.
suddenly get recommended tons of kung fu movies?
And I think it was Ip Man.
Yeah, Ip Man was the first one, who was Bruce Lee's teacher. I mean, it's just, there is something. I think when we were writing the album too, there's a way that we go. I mean, should we talk about Rocky mode? Where did it come from?
It was just one of my friends who's a musician. Whenever he gears up to really focus, he says, "I'm gonna go start some Rocky." And then I can't say the next word because
we're on the radio,
but it starts with an S. So he's like, "Time for the Rocky." You know what?
Let's just call it the Rocky mode.
Stuff. Yeah, the Rocky mode. And so we kind of picked that up where we're going full on Rocky mode, and it's like, wake up early, go on a jog, go to the studio. Like take a break, do push-ups.
And timers, like set a timer, 20 minutes vocal warm-ups, 30 minutes I'm going to work on this one melody idea.
Yeah. And then it's kind of just, I think after being in the Rocky mode, it's helpful to get inspiration from obviously like other, like even like obviously like basketball players and
right. It is like an athletic, to really, I mean, to me, it's more inspiring than thinking about the idea of songwriting being like, you go to the office and you put your hours in, even though that is what it is. I've learned over the years, but it makes it, if you feel like you're about to win a game, somehow it makes it more motivating. And also that we are athletes. I mean, I'm realizing only now, later on, as being a singer, that being a singer is truly being an athlete. You have to take care of your body in that way and think about your body in that way. So,
and I think during the process, like anything that can trick yourself into thinking that it sounds good. So sometimes if your heart rate's up, you're like, oh, it sounds good. Like, but it's just that your heart rate's up.
Yeah. And I would go swimming a lot after I'd walk to the YMCA after we'd work in the afternoons and go swimming. And I think that a lot of song lyrics got written on that walk between our studio on 15th Street and the Y, which is on whatever, a few blocks away. That there were, there. Anyway, you asked about kung fu movies. That's not really an answer, but the point is that there's, seeing someone else train and work really hard for something, and be able to use their selves in this beautiful, very disciplined way is just endlessly inspiring, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. I like the approach of looking at music as a sort of athleticism, because I think that is something that a lot of people often overlook. I also am just kind of obsessed with the idea of a Tune Yards mockumentary that's like filmed Rocky style, where you guys are like going to the studio and really just going in.
Interesting you say that, because we're kind of working on a Tune Yards televised mockumentary. Top secret. You didn't hear it here.
No, I heard nothing.
But thank you for the idea.
I really hope it includes a cover of the Rocky theme song because the wheels are turning and there's just a lot. There's a lot there. You guys know that.
Okay, great. I'm catching your vibe.
Thank you so much for sitting down today, Merrill and Nate. Your record Sketchy comes out on March 26th. Is there anything that you are particularly excited about having this record coming out into the world?
I'm excited to offer people more music. I mean, that I think I realized that music is really important to me during this pandemic more than ever before. Or since, high school, or, the kind of these early days of being a real music fan, of how much music can really just even physically help get us through. So I hope that for this music. Mm-hmm. What are you excited about?
The same for me. The same. Exactly the same. Just having it be released and available for people to listen to.
Yeah, we're really excited. And knowing that there are that it's been a hard time and that there are hard times ahead. And we are thinking of you out there, and just really, really wanting music to be a part of giving people what they need to, as it says, not to quote my own lyrics, but we all, now I'm going to forget my own lyrics. We all have trouble being brave enough to turn the page. So we're all going to need to adapt and change even more than we already have. And we hope that music can be part of lending people some strength there.
Absolutely. I'm really looking forward to having the whole album out into the world as well. Thank you so much to Tune Yards for sitting down, and thank you to engineer Erik Stromstad, as well as producers Jesse Wiza and Derrick Stevens, and thank you to the members of Minnesota Public Radio for making it all possible.
Thank you, Minnesotans. We love you. Take care. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks.